you have to believe that you're going to get through it in the end, and you get up every day and you fight, no matter how hard it is. I always say to people, like, I let myself cry. If I needed to cry at home, I cried, and I gave myself the grace and the permission to really go through it. But that's part of the journey. Like, if you don't go through those dark periods of time, then you'll never see the sun on the other side, and there's no right way to do it, and there's no right answer to it, but you just give yourself grace and know that, like, just the hard times are what build character and who you are.
Welcome to Season 3 of the Amani Experience podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is the award-winning Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, author, and undercover gamer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who have gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience podcast.
Welcome to episode 110 of the Amani Experience podcast. For this show, we have Tracy Judge with us. Tracy is the founder and chief connector at Soundings Connect. Three of my favorite things about this episode. First, Tracy opened up about a lot of personal stories. She shared a lot of personal stories. I really respect her vulnerability, and there's some great lessons in all her stories. Number two, she's very courageous. She left her job with no real set plan and is finding her way 1-2 years later, which I really respect. So that's just cool to hear. And then third is she always talks about how give yourself grace, and going through tough times, give yourself grace. And I think that is wise, and we should take that advice. I appreciate her sharing that. Remember to reach me. You can email me, podcast@Amani Experience. Follow us on all the socials @Amani Experience. And don't forget to join and donate to the Patreon, which is patreon.com/Amani Experience. Thank you very much for listening, and to the show we go. I would like to welcome Tracy Judge to the Amani Experience podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We are excited to have you here. We're in our mobile studio, which is here in Manhattan Beach, California. Tell the listeners, where did you grow up?
I grew up right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Nice. So Philly, East Coast, where'd you go to school?
I went to Drexel University for college for my undergrad, and then San Diego State for graduate school.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm East Coast as well, from Washington, D.C. area. What had made you decide to major in hospitality management at Drexel?
Well, I started as a marketing major. Initially wanted to go into advertising and switched schools at the last, about a week before I was supposed to start, and went to Drexel as a marketing major. And about halfway through, I realized that my love for hospitality wasn't going to end, and that it made sense to actually go into it as a major.
Cool. So you graduated from there. What was your first job upon graduation?
I managed a Mexican restaurant in West Philly called Zocalo.
Got it.
And I worked there throughout college, and upon graduation, the owner wanted to explore new things, so promoted me to the manager, and I did that for about a year before I left to get into meeting planning.
Got it. Now, was this before Kitchen Nightmares came to the show or after?
How do you know that?
We have a research team. We do a little research.
It was before they came there. And funny enough, when Kitchen Nightmares was there, I was already living here, and I was I worked with Marriage Travel at the time. And I had a program in Philly that I was leading in downtown Philly one of the nights they were filming. So I got to bring my team from Marriott to dinner at Zocalo while Gordon Ramsay was filming. So it was interesting. It was a sad episode. It was a hard one to watch.
Right. I can imagine. Yeah, it was tough. Do you miss anything about working in restaurants, in the restaurant industry?
Some things. I think the restaurant industry really keeps you on your toes. I think it taught me how to multitask, for sure. I love the fast pace of it, and I love how it challenges your mind, and, you have to memorize things and keep things moving.
Yeah. Then what inspired you to go from Zocalo, I believe that's how you pronounce it, right? And then from there, what did you do after that?
I went on the road with Merritt's as a travel director, and at the time, one of my regular customers from Zocalo, he would come in a lot throughout the week, and one day he asked me, Tracy, do you want to stay in restaurants? And I said, oh, hell no. But I think I want to go into meeting planning, which I'm not sure is much better of a lifestyle. But it turned out he was a client of Merritt's McGettigan, and then at the time was Merritt's McGettigan, and knew one of the McGettigan sisters was his account manager. And I was in their office within a week after that, and Mr. McGettigan came into my interview, and I got to meet him right off the bat. And they gave me the option of being a coordinator in the office or a travel director. So I chose the life on the road to learn from the ground up.
Yeah, and so you did a variety of jobs at Merritt's. What was maybe your favorite job or position you had within Merritt's?
Oh, it's hard. They're all so different. I would say, looking back, the most fun of them all is definitely being a travel director. You're traveling all the time. You're with different people all of the time, which is a great experience, and people from all over the country/world. You're working with different teams, getting to know different people, and your client is always changing.
Right.
And if it's a bad week or, not the best crew for you, a week, it's over, and you move on to the next one.
Right. For people who don't understand what a travel director is, what's like the quick definition of that?
So you are the on-site staff that gets sent wherever in the world a meeting or incentive trip is operating, and you work with the hotels, transportation companies, DMCs, whatever vendors are involved, and you're essentially the liaison between the client and the operators who are helping you with your program.
Cool. Then from Merritt's, you went and started working for Cadence. How did that switch happen?
Yeah. So, I've always said at Merritt's, I've learned enough in each position to be dangerous. And I'm just a curious person in general, and I love to learn. And when I was at Merritt's, I moved to San Diego from Philadelphia. So I was living in San Diego. There wasn't a Merritt's office in San Diego. So from a growth standpoint, it was really difficult at that time, because there weren't a lot of remote employees. Now they have a lot of remote employees.
Yeah.
So I wanted to move on to the next step, but I wasn't sure what that would look like. And an opportunity came up at Cadence Travel, a smaller company, where I could go into sales and account management and learn that route. So I decided to take that leap.
Well, that's excellent. How do you compare living in Philly to living in San Diego?
Oh, it's so different, but I love them both so much for totally different reasons. And still, I think I love living in San Diego because it's so calm, and I travel so much. So I come home, I live on the Bay, I come home to this very relaxed environment. But I still am a city girl at heart, and I love it. But my family's all in Philly.
Okay.
I have lots of friends there. I have customers there, so I get to go back and forth a lot.
All right.
But, the people, it's much different. In San Diego, everybody is very nice all the time, and it's more of a surface place, right? Where everybody feels really friendly. Where Philly, it's a grind. It's always a grind, but people in Philly are really loyal, right? Like once you make friends in Philly, you're really tight. But I think it's the difference of transient cities.
Yeah.
San Diego's a transient city, where Philly, a lot of people don't leave.
This is true. Philly is home to some of the best DJs in the world, too, so I have the ultimate respect, So Jazzy Jeff, Questlove, so many of them there. So I got respect for Philly, definitely. After you were at Cadence for maybe 3.5, almost 4 years, you decided to go out on your own and do your own thing. Mm-hmm. So tell us what inspired you to make such a massive risk and leap, which I love, so I want to hear more about it.
I had an amazing run at Cadence, and we were really able to build out the meetings and incentives division there, and I was able to take everything that I had learned in my career, and also when I left Merritt's to go work for Cadence, I was in the middle of grad school at San Diego State. So it was a really interesting time for me, but I had learned so much through merits and was learning so much in grad school and learning how to apply it all to what I was doing. So, and, Cadence was an awesome place to grow and to learn. We grew the business by 330% while I was there. And I got to work with some really amazing clients and build a really awesome team. But I think like anything else, it's a business and things change, and there was leadership changes. And over time, I realized, maybe it isn't the right place anymore for me. But it's an interesting process you go through because I give everything to what I do, and I love work, I love business, and after you want to believe that it's still the right place for you, right? And it was one morning I remember I woke up to go to work and bawled crying, and I knew that was it, right? It had hit me, and I knew it was time to move on, and I think I didn't want to let go for so long, but I think your intuition always wins in the end, and you have to listen to it and follow it. So I went through that process of, okay, you've worked so hard to get here, and now you're ready to walk away from it. Are you sure? And I took some time, and I kept vetting my decision and had to go through everything I was going to give up, through this change. And I always wanted to start my own business, but I didn't know if it was the time or not. But what I did know is that I had an amazing team and a lot of people that I recruited, and great clients I recruited as well. And it was too hard for me to decide what I wanted to do next. Okay. So I made the decision that I was going to leave without knowing my plan, and focused about the next month and a half on just lining things up to make sure everybody was okay when I did make that choice. So I intentionally quit without another job, and really, I had ideas of the business I wanted, but I didn't have a business plan, and I traveled for a little while, and I really thought through it. I didn't mean to interview right away, but funny things happen. I had a company that was always like an aspirational company to me reach out to me on my last day at Cadence, not knowing that I had quit. It was, total coincidence. And I saw through that interview. And once I started interviewing with them and really liked them, I started taking other interviews. And it was really through that interview process that I realized, that I was ready to take the jump and do it on my own.
Okay. What did your family and friends say when you kind of left a pretty secure industry job with no plan? I'm curious, what did they say to you? Because they probably thought you were a little crazy. I can relate, but tell us.
Yeah, it was funny. Well, my family has obviously known me for a lot of years, and that there's no stopping me once my mind's made up. And the way I process, I go through the process internally. I'm a closet introvert, and by the time I come out with what my decision is, they know it's done. I remember my mom said to me, well, you're a smart girl. You seem to always know what you're doing, so good. Good, great, Right. And I had some friends definitely, question my sanity. Along the way, and you question yours too. I remember sitting on the phone transitioning clients and making the phone calls with people on my team to tell them that I was leaving and transitioning, and that I didn't know what I was doing next. And we would be talking about the transition plan, and they would stop and say, Tracy, that's really courageous. I can't believe you're doing this. Like, I wish I could do something like that.
Yes.
And at the time I would say, yeah, courageous or really, really crazy. I'll tell you in a year.
And here we are a year and a half later, so I'd say courageous, for sure. That takes some, they say major chutzpah. I think that's the proper word for it, I believe. So, okay. Tell us, first, I'm curious, where did the name Soundings Connect come from? Where did that come to be?
Oh, so it was a lot of brainstorming and a lot of thinking about what meant something to me and what sounded good. And it really came from the the word sounding, or taking soundings, comes from taking soundings of the ocean floor, right? And it means really to go deeper and to go below the surface, or like making a sound decision, right? You're taking inventory of everything that's going on. You're considering all the possibilities and then you're taking action. And so it was the idea of working with clients and really understanding them and understanding what they needed and what their organization needed, because every organization is so different, right? And each person is so different, and really understanding them and then being able to connect them with the people that would work the best with them.
Ah, I like it. Very clever.
Thanks.
I like it. Well done. Well done. If you're going to describe and summarize yourself, where you are right now today, personally, professionally, in 30 seconds or less, how would you summarize yourself?
I'm an individual, and I talk about this in one of my presentations, but I have 4 brothers, 4 sisters. I'm my mom's oldest, my dad's youngest, and altogether I'm in the middle, but I'm an only child. And, I think that really speaks to who I am as a person. I've played a lot of different roles in my life, and I am used to treating people how they, need to be treated. And I think that's all rubbed off on me and who I am as a person.
4 brothers and 4 sisters. Wow. Yet you're only an individual child, your only child. That's interesting. I'll have to ask you about that a little later. That's interesting. I'm really curious to hear how you answer some of these questions, because you have such a wide range of experience, and you meet people and you interview and you kind of place people all over. So I'm really curious to see how you answer. The first one is, in your opinion, what is important for creative professionals such as yourself or myself, to succeed in today's business environment?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I love creative minds, and as a creative person myself, a lot of times we want to live from, up here.
Yes.
And the tactical pieces of business are really tough. So I think for creatives, it's, it depends what your situation is, right? If you can afford to have the people around you and surrounding you that can really hone in on the operations piece of things and the details, it's great to have them. But otherwise, it's practicing those things that are hard for you, and being able to use project management tools, right? Or manage your own finances through QuickBooks, or doing those things that aren't your strengths, but being able to, do them successfully, or at least well enough to run your business.
Exactly. What is something you're working through today that's difficult for you, but you're still trying to learn? For example.
Well, it's about, I've been talking about this recently, because I feel about 70% of what I do in my daily life right now, I don't really know what I'm doing. I would say one of the things I'm working through right now is analytics, marketing analytics. And being able to, you have all these tools, and I use Zoho for my CRM and campaigns and things like that. And there's a plethora of information and data, but it's really drilling into what data do I need to capture, what data points are important, what are my key performance indicators. And when I'm presented with that data, I understand it, right? And I know where the levers are, but it's really figuring out how to capture it and how to build reports and dashboards to be able to give you a clear picture of your business.
Yeah. Analytics can be like a rabbit hole. Once you go down and start looking at it, you might not come out for a couple weeks. So
yeah, it's true. And even, I have something on my phone. You have apps for every piece of Zoho on my phone that will pop up and tell me what's happening and what's going on. And it can be, distracting.
Yes, it can be very distracting. When do you feel was the turning point of your career? Could it be after you started the business and you were able to get a bunch of clients right away, or making the decision to start your own business? When do you feel was the turning point in your career?
I would say the turning point in my career was before I started my own business. And it was I would say my decision to go to grad school.
Okay.
I was living in San Diego. I was working remotely from home. I wanted to grow, and I felt like I had a ton of potential to grow. But in our business, we move so fast in meetings and events, and everybody wants to help, right, and grow people, but we often don't have the opportunity to grow people the way that we would like to. And also, I wanted to live in California. I wasn't in headquarters.
Right.
And Meritz and David Beckenbaugh and Steve O'Malley were so supportive of me going to grad school, and just amazing individuals, and did everything they could to support me, which was awesome. But what I realized is that if I wanted to grow my career and be the best I could be, that meant I was going to have to take that, I was going to have to take that on my own. Mm-hmm. And I made that decision. I remember sitting in the first day of grad school, and you're in the classroom the first day, and Carl Winston, who's the director of the school, said, "We're going to change your life." And I looked at him and was like, "Who's this, jerk? Like, he thinks he's going to change my life." And, years later, it's true. It was just the beginning of a journey for me, and it really made me look at business from a different perspective. A lot of it was looking inside and realizing, what you had to change about yourself to succeed in business, and where you were where I was emotionally immature for business. And the network that came from it was just incredible. Yeah. And mentorship. So yeah, I would say that was the most pivotal moment in my career.
Good. What grad school took 2 years? How long did it take you to get through the program?
It's 18 months.
18-month program.
Yeah.
Two questions. I'll ask this one first. What were maybe your 3 biggest takeaways from your experience at grad school?
Oh. The importance of mentorship, and it goes both ways. So, I've had a lot of my success and development since then a lot of it has to do with the mentors that I've had in my life, and having, the confidence to reach out to them, and finding people that are willing to support you, right? And it's funny, when you start delivering, right, people mentor you, and then you deliver and you grow, they're happy to mentor you. So it also gives you that extra motivation to do it and to succeed. But at the same time, it goes both ways. I had so many amazing mentors, and I continue to mentor others and students at STSU or whoever it may be, because, you get as much out of mentoring others as you do being mentored.
Exactly. Yes.
So I would say, mentorship was one of the value of mentorship was one of the biggest takeaways. A lot of the program at San Diego State makes you look inside, and we read a lot, and you had to apply leadership styles and others' leadership styles to yours. And it made me realize a lot of the things I was holding on to, and a lot of the things through my life and my personal life experiences that were coming out in business that needed to shift if I wanted to have a successful career. So we had one class that was called, it was a directed readings class, and I used to laugh and say it was like therapy. And our teacher was Larry Beck, so we would have to write papers weekly, and I would say, "Dear Larry," because it was therapy, or your diary. So the application of your personal life and emotions to business is one of the big takeaways I've had, and taking care of yourself first, right?
Yes.
And will help you later in business for sure. And then I think the last takeaway I'll say is that we're in a time that is things are changing so quickly that you can be an expert in something one day, and a week later you're not anymore.
Yes.
So it taught me to look further into the future and think about, where are we going to be in a year from now as an industry? Where are we going to be in 5 years from now as an industry? And really, be an innovative thinker and think about the future instead of, what's next.
Great. So then my follow-up question, we'll have a couple, but you were working full-time in graduate school and living life. How did you manage your time so you could try to stay somewhat balanced and productive?
Oh, I wasn't balanced at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there was no balance. It was. I'll tell you a personal story and how it's kind of funny how life works. I was in the middle of grad school when I started at Cadence, and I was in a 6-year relationship, and the same day I ended up starting at Cadence, my relationship ended.
Oh, okay.
So I was in the middle of grad school, just had started a new job, ended a 6-year relationship where we had lived together, and I had a dog, and I worked at home. And now I was working in an office and traveling a lot. So it was a really, really crazy point in my life. And I think, what really got me through that and balancing it is that I had to give myself grace, right? And you had to figure out what is really important right now and what do you have to get done and how are you going to keep yourself healthy and sane through this. And for me, I retreated happily.
Okay.
Right? Like I knew that I needed time and I needed time alone. And if there was a point in my life that I wasn't as social as I was before, or I couldn't give the time to my friends that they expect it from me, or my family, that it was okay for me to take that time.
If you meet someone today who maybe is going to go through or is going through the same thing you went through, what advice would you give them to get through it all?
It's funny. I just gave somebody younger than me that's going through something similar
Right.
the same advice. Like, give yourself grace, and during those times, like, you just go through it. And if you let yourself go through it, that's like what makes the experience so much better at the end. And you don't realize each day how much you're growing through it.
Well said. Well said. Why do you love what you do?
Well, I'm fascinated by business in general, and I am fascinated by people and how people interact together and why some people mesh well and some people don't. And I love travel. So basically, I consult with people on what they need for their business and figure out what people are going to help make their business thrive. And it's in the travel industry. So
All right, done.
Yeah.
On the flip side, what is something that scares you?
Oh. Well, it's funny. I met with somebody on my way up here in North County in San Diego, and I was telling her last year that I was scared of public speaking.
Oh, okay.
So I last year made it my mission when I started my business. Well, one, I'm going to be my own brand now, so I have to get out and do it. And two, it was something I didn't have a lot of time to focus on before. So I made it my goal last year to really get out there and, when I do things, I really go for it.
Yes, I've heard.
I got a lot of experience last year public speaking, and then I said to her, this year I'm supposed to be doing video.
Yes. Hello. Hi, we waved to the video.
This year I was supposed to be doing video, and I've only done one all year, so... Right. I got here not knowing I was going to be on video, so here we go. I'm doing what scares me.
There you go. I love it. I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at WEC in Toronto, and you talked about the gig economy, and that really hit home for me because I, I guess a supplier on Upwork. I've rode for Uber for like 3 or 4 years, kind of on the side, so I relate to that a lot. First, what's your definition of the gig economy?
It's funny because there's the gig economy and there's the freelance economy. And if you could define the two, I separate the two. I would say the gig economy is you don't need the same level of skill and expertise as you need in the freelance economy,
yes,
right?
yes.
So that's how I would define the two of them. But why they're similar is that you set your own hours, you live your own life, right? And you're responsible for making your own income.
Right, definitely. Now, our industry, your industry, you have a very unique niche, but I still think it's somewhat crowded. So explain to us, how do you rise above all the noise and distinguish yourself from any competition out there?
Yeah. I don't have a lot of competition that does exactly what I do,
True.
right? But there are a lot of different solutions
Yes.
that are that can provide the same type of thing, right? So for me, going into this business, I've always paid a lot of attention to the gig economy and what was happening, with the Ubers and Lyfts and TaskRabbits of the world, and found it fascinating. And what was interesting when I came, I had this idea of what I wanted to do. I thought, oh, everybody's going to get this. But I didn't, I guess, realize how much focus I was paying, how much focus I was putting on the gig economy in general. And it was kind of new to people. And the concept of having freelancers support their business instead of an agency and was a new concept for a lot of people. And people didn't really understand what I was talking about. And so what I realized is that I needed to start being a thought leader in that space. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my time in the last year really went into research and writing and speaking and creating awareness about what was happening in other industries and how this concept was disrupting other industries.
Definitely. I think historically speaking, like the hospitality industry is very slow to adjust to trends and technology. They're very stuck in their ways, Like I know you used to work at Lowe's Hotels. I grew up in the hotel world, and like we are late.
Yeah.
How do you focus and address that as you're being a thought leader and trying to get some companies or potential clients to be like, look, this is here. It's not coming. It's here. How we should work together. How do you kind of convince them?
Yeah, it's looking at other industries, right? It's looking at the tech industry who was, early adopter of most things.
This is true. Yes.
But the tech industry has been leveraging the freelance economy for a really long time. Creative services, you see it a lot more as well. So it's showing them what other industries are using this and how companies are successful because of it is a big piece to it.
How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Well, it's all about the failures for sure. I don't know. I don't know what my favorite failure would be.
Well, think of one that comes to mind, and we'll talk through it. Just think of one that comes to mind.
I don't know. I think we have to go back to this one.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. Well, let's talk about public speaking.
Okay.
How did you get over your initial fear to speak in front of people?
This is actually a really good one.
Okay.
So what? Let's go back. Let's go back to the failure.
Okay. All right. We'll rewind. Carry on.
Well, it absolutely was one of my greatest failures that has really changed my life. But I was speaking in front of our customer advisory board when I was at Cadence, and it was a really small group of people, and it was some of our partners as well as some of our top customers were in the room, and there's a lot, we were putting together leading into it, and I was nervous about it, and I thought that I was underprepared. And so I rehearsed a lot. And I also drank a ton of caffeine that morning.
Okay.
And when, I got up to present in front of this small group of people, it was, I blacked out. Like, it's one of those scary moments that, in high school, you're doing public speaking in the public speaking class and what everybody's afraid of. Yeah. And it happened to me. And it was terrible. I didn't think I was going to be able to get back up and finish when I had to. And coming out of that, it was really tough. And I made it through that day, and then I made it through the next day fine. But, what I realized was that I over-prepared. I over-scripted myself. Wow. And I lost my authenticity in it all. And because I was so scripted, I couldn't pivot when one thing didn't land the way it was supposed to, right? So that one, and two, I drank way too much caffeine. So we won't
do that again. More water
moving
next time.
Forward, moving forward, it's always, don't overscript yourself and drink less caffeine. But that was the reason that I was like, okay, it's time. I really need to focus on public speaking because I was so scared to do it again after that.
Yeah. How did when you blacked out, you didn't fall out, you just kind of don't remember what happened?
No, yeah. I didn't fall, luckily, but you just go dark.
You shake your head and all of a sudden you're sitting down and you're like, what happened? So, wow. How have you continued to get through the fear? And it must have taken a lot of courage to get up again, because that can be a paralyzing moment. What have you done to kind of build on your courage and keep moving forward?
Yeah, it was really scary to do again first. I was lucky because when I first started speaking, I would speak with somebody else as well. So when you're bouncing off each other, it's a lot easier. And especially, if you have a good rapport with somebody you're presenting with and they know you well, you kind of catch each other, right? So that was helpful initially, doing it with somebody else. And then it was also just learning to trust myself and that I really understood my content and I could pivot with any question because I knew my subjects really well. So having that confidence and not worrying about, being perfect.
Yes, no such thing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. Now, as you continue to become a better speaker, you make strides, you start your own company, you get awards, you do acquire some more critics, or haters as we call them. How do you handle your critics?
I've been pretty lucky in that realm. In this industry over time, I was looking back this year, I was at a conference and realizing how many people I really know now, right? So once I think it's when you're authentically you and you're building relationships over the years, a lot of people are supportive of you. So I haven't had to deal with many critics in my role, or I'm just not listening.
Which could be good
right?
as well,
Like
too.
I'm not listening to the noise, and I have a mission and a vision of where I want to take this, and I passionately believe in it and believe it's the future. But it is good to listen to critics for sure, and it depends who the critic is, right? There's some amazing mentors in my life that when they speak that kind of got to take a step back at least and say, okay, are they right?
Yeah, definitely.
And am I going to listen to the advice or not? But, the rest of the noise, you kind of just need to smile through and keep going and, just bring it.
There you go. Amen. You've mentioned mentors several times in the interview so far. What advice would you give to people who are searching for the right mentor to kind of guide them along the next stages of their life? How can one acquire a good mentor?
Networking is huge. So whatever your industry is, getting out there and finding the people that you feel are your people, right? That could give you good advice. One of the things, it's good to have mentors that are like you, and it's good to have mentors that are not like you. But when you are looking for a mentor, just make sure it's somebody that you feel aligns with you from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
I would say that's really important because the advice they're going to give you is likely going to be advice from their career, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So if you don't believe in the way they do business, then don't talk to them. Also, mentors are always connecting you with other people. So if they're not your tribe, then you're in a lot of trouble there. So network and shop around, find the right people. And when you find them, listen to them and let them know that you're taking their advice seriously because people want an ROI on their time. And if they see that they're helping you, they'll continue to support you.
Definitely.
If you're not doing anything with the advice, they'll be gone.
Yeah. Great advice. Tell us about the darkest time of your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think I've already talked about really the darkest time when I was going through a lot of changes
Yes.
in my life at once. And again, it's that, you have to believe that you're going to get through it in the end, and you get up every day and you fight no matter how hard it is. I always say to people, I let myself cry. If I needed to cry at home, I cried, and I gave myself the grace and the permission to really go through it. But that's part of the journey. If you don't go through those dark periods of time, then you'll never see the sun on the other side, and there's no right way to do it, and there's no right answer to it, but you just give yourself grace and know that the hard times are what build character and who you are.
You're speaking my language, Tracy. Keep speaking. A lot of people don't have the patience to go through the tough times and see it through. They just kind of quit or shut down. How did you acquire so much patience to really get through it?
Oh, I have no patience. Let's be honest here. I am, I'm not a patient person at all, but I am a fighter. Yeah. And, for good and bad in my life, you learn to fight through things. And the more you do it and the more you get to the other side of it, the more confident you are when those times come to keep on going and keep on pushing.
Good. I want to ask around about you. Some of the most common adjectives that people use to describe you were courageous, intelligent, creative, loyal. What's your response when you hear people use those adjectives to describe you?
Well, who are you asking?
I can't tell you all my secrets.
How much do you think I paid them?
Very little, free.
No, it's really awesome to hear those words for sure about yourself. And I think loyalty is the one that's the best for me to hear, because being loyal to people is really everything, and it means they trust you too, right? And it's everything in business, right? We're all going to make mistakes. None of us are perfect, and as leaders, we're not perfect either, right? So whether it's my customer or somebody that's a freelancer or an employee, it's that when they know you're loyal, they're willing to go through the tougher times with you.
Yeah. Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
That's such a hard one, because like I said, I have a lot of people in my life. I have a very large family, and I also I change a lot as I go, right? So I think at different age groups, it's at different ages, there were different people that have influenced me. I think from as a young girl, I had an uncle of mine that I think just really saw me, right? He really just understood who I was. And I think at that point, having that type of relationship at such a young age and connection was really helpful. And really let me know I could be authentically myself, and who I was okay.
Interesting. Cool. Shout out to your uncle. Yes. What do you find easy to do that your friends find hard to do?
I guess living in a place of the unknown. If I look at the lives of a lot of my friends, right? It's that like I quit my job without another one, right? Not knowing what was coming next. I'm single. I have a dog, no children, and I can live in this place of uncertainty and get through it. And it's certainly not for everyone. It doesn't make me better than them by any means, because there's many mornings I wake up and think, damn it, why couldn't I just be like them, right?
Right.
But I think my ability to do that and keep striving through it is what makes me different than most of them.
Yeah, very admirable. What would you like to be better at?
I would like to be better at art, for sure. And a big piece of that is that it's hard to be a creative but not have like artistic talent per se, because you can visualize what you want but you can't create it yourself. So I find that piece of it to be very challenging. And in my business, there's visual stuff I want or graphics I can see, but I can't do it myself. Right. And I find it to be very frustrating. And then also language.
Yes, we're learning Spanish.
Yeah, I tried. It's not going great, but
well, you'll get through it.
Yeah, I just spent 3 weeks in Mexico and took Spanish lessons every day, 5 days a week. So I'm trying, but it's one of the things that's really hard for me, and it's one of the things that makes me feel the most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. It's very uncomfortable trying to do it, and pronunciation, and how you're received by other people. So it's definitely a lesson in vulnerability for me, for sure. But going back to what else I would be good at, routine. So just the fact that I went.
Right.
Just the fact that I did something for 5 days in a row for 3 weeks straight for an hour a day is a huge accomplishment for me.
All right. We're breaking new barriers. I love it. When you say art, you mentioned graphic design. Any other sort of art that you wish you could be, a savant at?
Well, I wish I had some musical talent.
Oh, dancing or singing?
I mean, both. Maybe playing an instrument.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not pretty. None of them are very pretty.
Okay.
I decided, I don't know if it was The Simpsons or I had an older cousin that played the saxophone.
Oh.
So when I was in 4th grade and they say you get to pick an instrument, I, of course, picked the saxophone, which was about as big as me, as heavy as me. And I was terrible at it. And my poor parents, I think that they were very happy when I decided that the saxophone was not for me.
Okay. All right. Is that the instrument you try to pick up now and play, or is there another one out there that has piqued your interest?
No, I don't really play much.
Okay, saxophone. I know a good saxophone player.
Oh, you do? Yeah. I recently played the kazoo. Oh, you're a saxophone player.
Yeah, saxophone player, piano, and DJ, but neither here nor there. So the kazoo.
If you want to destroy your eardrums, you can start teaching me how to play the saxophone.
All right, we'll see about that. That's hilarious. The kazoo, you said?
Yeah, the kazoo. I tried that recently.
Okay.
But I have a new client that has it's a premium travel electric guitar, and it folds in half and can go in a backpack and bring on the plane, which is super exciting being from the travel industry.
Yeah.
So I get to play around with the guitars a lot. So I have a deal with one of the guys. We're going to barter.
Okay.
He's going to start teaching me.
Good guitar play. If you were to pick a song that you would want to be your solo on the guitar, what song comes to mind?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, think on that, because I'm going to follow with that with a 2-part question.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that. When you were 21, you were at Drexel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go back and talk to 21-year-old Tracy. Give her advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
It would be put down that 40 and stay out of the after-hour bars.
Great advice. I did not expect you to say 40, Old English, 40 in the brown paper bag.
Drexel isn't, whole thing. Koki 900s, we drank a lot from the 40 stores, But that's what happens. You go to school in West Philly, that's what's there.
That's what's there, definitely. A lot of that was at D.C. too. I love it. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
I think it was, as much as I want to say, I'm a fighter. I said it earlier, right? And I don't give up. But it took me a long time to know when it was the time to give up. And I think I had this stubbornness about me where I thought, I could make anything work. And the truth is, you can't. And once I let go of that and didn't see letting go as a failure and saw it as, it's being able to let go, it's a gift, right? You don't want to let go too soon, but you have to let go when your gut's telling you it's time, and that's changed my life dramatically.
Great lesson. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence would be, I love to help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What's your sentence?
Oh. I would say it's learn enough to be dangerous.
That's a good one. I like it. All right. Yes. Now, what is one new habit you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
This is a funny one. I already told you I'm not very good at habits or routine. So there's been, it changes. There's not one that's stayed consistent, but I live on the bay in San Diego in Pacific Beach, and I have a dog. And I realized I was letting the days go by and rarely seeing the sunset. So I try every day that I'm home to take my dog out on the bay during sunset and end the day that way, and also, socialize. Working at home alone, yes. You can become a hermit.
Yes,
so
we can.
It was good for me to really realize where I get to live in the world and get fresh air and be outside with my dog and talk to my neighbors.
Good. Excellent decisions. We're really big readers here on the Amani Experience podcast. So if there was 1, 2, or 3 books you feel people should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what books come to mind?
Well, one of my very favorite books is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and it's gone through every transition in life with me, whether it was, personal transitions or it was business transitions or even checking back in business, right? Are we still who we say we are? And if you haven't read it, absolutely read it. It really focuses on your why. And when you're building a business, it's focused on what is your business's why, right? And who are you authentically? So that's a good one that you can always go back to. Another one that I love that's a very odd one, it's called Failure of Nerve, and it's Leadership in the Age of a Quick Fix. And we had to read it in grad school, and at the beginning of it, it's very boring. So if you read it, just get through the beginning, and I promise it's really good.
Okay.
But it talked a lot about system thinking and emotional triangles, and it made me see business very differently than I had before because it taught you more about the human side to business and life. So there was a great application for me personally, and probably one of the most personal life-changing books for me.
Wow.
But from a business standpoint, it's made me so much better.
Interesting. Do you know that Simon Sinek had a blackout experience himself when he was speaking? Did you know that?
No.
Yes, he did. So I'll send you the link to that article. He had that. Speaking of, his book, what is your why? Since you brought it up, let's talk about it.
I know. Right now, I think it's been such an amazing journey for me becoming an entrepreneur and putting myself out there. So I'm really, I really exist to help other people grow their own businesses and help them as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, excellent. What's been the best advice you've ever received? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Mm-hmm. I had a manager of mine when we were debriefing after I was leaving to go on to another job, and she said to me, Tracy, a lot of the times you're right. She's like, you get this business, you understand it. She's like, but you're not being successful, or people aren't listening to you because of the way you're saying it. And I blame Philly for a lot of that. I was very direct and absolutely would steamroll people, right? But when you stop and you listen and you understand and then, get your point across, it works much better. I agree. Yeah, blame Philly. That's funny.
Yeah, it's Philly. It's definitely Philly.
You spoke earlier about being able to see trends kind of before they happen, or just staying ahead of the trends. When you're looking at your world, whether it be the meetings and events, the freelance world, what's one trend that you've got your eye on that you feel people should really keep close attention to?
Absolutely pay attention to what's happening in the gig economy and freelance economy. If you think about Airbnb and Airbnb 10 years ago when it was starting and everything it went through from a legal standpoint, and how cities were fighting it, how states were fighting it, and how many lawsuits were going on, and Airbnb continuing to fight it and fight it and fight it, right? And the money was going in, a lot of money was going into fighting it. And if you look at the gig economy now, it's very similar. Like, you see what's going on with the Uber drivers and everything in the news, which is scary. It's really scary for, when you have a business around around freelancers. But I'm really confident that just like Airbnb won most of its battles, it's going to be the same with the freelance economy and gig economy. So pay close attention to it, because it's going to disrupt how we do business in general.
Exactly. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, what keeps you up at night?
My customers being happy.
Okay.
I think that's one of my biggest fears as well, right? It's that, I always want my customers to be happy with the service that we're providing them. And I want them to feel like we're delivering on what our promise is. So it's those little things that, maybe at times I get too, paranoid. I like to say it's healthy paranoia.
Right.
But it always has to be about your customer.
Exactly. Agreed. Tell the people how they can find you online, your website, social media, and where you spend most of your time.
Yeah. So my website is soundingsconnect.com, as is my Instagram is soundingsconnect as well. My personal Instagram is Tracy Judge, and where I spend my time is a tough one. I'm all over the place all the time. But I do a lot of industry conferences, so I'll be at IMEX next month.
Nice. Good.
I go to WEC every year. So if you're going to an industry event, reach out.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance I'll be there.
It is. Now, are you a member of MPI? Or
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
How has your membership in MPI benefited you personally and professionally? Because we talk a lot about it on the podcast, because I interview a lot of people. And I always talk to my younger students about the importance of joining a professional association to help their career personally and professionally. Yeah. How has it helped you?
Oh, it's been amazing. I started with my first association. I started with PCMA in Southern California. And I started, it was funny. I joined and I filled out and said, I'll volunteer for a committee. And they wrote back that I got accepted. And I was so excited, like, they want me. They really want me, And then I got invited to the board retreat, and you feel really special. And then I got there and realized not a lot of people were volunteering. But
you're on the board.
But there I was, and when I speak at chapters, they get mad when I tell that story because they want volunteers. But I'll tell you, it was one of the best. Being involved in associations was one of the best things that I've done for myself. I would say obviously from a networking standpoint and connections, and you make friends that you do business with and you learn from. Also, it's a great tool for leadership development, because you're a volunteer, right? So if you screw stuff up, you're a volunteer. You're not losing your job,
True.
Right?
Yes.
So that's a plus. And also, it's all volunteers that you're leading. So it's challenging, and you can learn a lot about people and how to become a leader through it. And then, I kept volunteering in different roles, and I've sat on national committees for PCMA, and most recently I've been really active in MPI.
Yes.
I sit on the board for the independent and small business advisory board, and that has been an amazing experience for me, and I just commend MPI for creating this community of independence, because we go through different things, right? When you're starting a small business, it's much different than what larger companies are going through, or employees at larger companies are going through. So I've built a great network there, and we refer business to each other. We learn from each other. I've mentored a lot of students as well, and I always tell them get involved with associations and volunteer and become part of it, because it'll kickstart your career.
It will. Now, you're a sports fan at all? A little?
Not much anymore. Yeah.
Let's see here. We're going to go down to San Diego. Petco Field. That's where the Padres play?
Yeah, Petco Park.
Okay, Petco Park. We're going to walk out to Petco Park, and they're announcing Tracy's coming to the field. What song is playing? That's the follow-up to the guitar song. We'll just have this one. What's the song that's playing? We're going to wait for a song for you. So you take as much time as you'd like. We're going to get a song from you, this one. I'm not letting go of this question.
Oh. But there's so many ways you can go.
Go pick away.
Maybe Titanium.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
David Guetta and Sia. All right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We'll fit that in. Thank you.
All right. Cool.
Cool. So before I ask you the final question, I just want to say thank you very much for appearing on the show. I admire your vulnerability, your courage, your intelligence in the business model, because we kind of work in the same space, and I think you're doing great just with doing the public speaking, professional speaking, and the mentorship throughout the schools. So keep doing what you're doing, because I'm a fan, and I appreciate you being open and honest in this conversation. We let our guests take us home with any last-minute words of wisdom or advice. So I'll say thank you again, and take us home.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. This has been great, and thank you for forcing me to be on video and facing one of my fears.
Done. We threw that one now.
So
Your
I appreciate
first podcast interview too.
We did, and my first podcast interview.
Yes,
so we're really checking off the boxes today. But I would say to everyone, just be authentically you. We, especially in the hospitality business, authenticity sells, and going to work and being able to be your true self every single day is super rewarding.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon for our next episode.